What is quacking, everybody? So the objective. Objective is a key component of this game. It is what makes you win the game. That is what you should be focusing on a majority of the time you are playing the game. Depending on your role, you're obviously doing different things. If you're the support, you're going to be more focused on the objective. However, even as a Slayer, it's still your obligation to be focusing on the objective. Can you help get pop on Rainmaker? Can you cover tower? You don't have to ride tower necessarily, but can you cover tower? Things like that. Can you help paint the zone? Can you get clams in the basket? Or indirectly, can you cover the basket and keep the enemy team back while your teammates trying to score? Objective is the way you win the game. And I will say a majority of the time, a lot of people ignore the objective. With some within reason. Slayers mostly ignore the objective. However, I see a lot of people who should not be ignoring the objective ignore the objective. The amount of times I see backliners, paint supports, people who aren't going to be able to get in there and get kills, they just ignored the objective when they should be on the objective. Now, I've made a couple videos so far covering mentality, decision making, and painting still applies to this. Having good decision making applies to this, and now you apply it to the objective and the game mode. And that's where Splatoon becomes a really fascinating game, because it's just an amalgamation of so many things crunched together, and the best of the best come out on top. When you got good decision making and thinking, you got your mechanics, you're focused on the objective, that's when you're going to come out on top. So when you're focused on objective, that's where you're going to see more gains, is, moving with the objective. Every single objective has an objective line, or when you play a certain map mode, they have their own flow state that is typically very easy to follow. Zones is very different for the most part, but when you follow something like tower control or Rainmaker, if you look, you see the line. You see this line right here for tower, and that's why I'm on tower control, because it's the easiest way to visualize the objective line. You can see where tower's gonna go, so you follow it, okay? You have someone ride the tower, and then, let's say you're just gonna be over here. You're following the line over here. Or, this is kind of, the objective isn't over here, but someone can come from the flank. So you're watching the flank, but you're staying close to the objective to be kind of present and keep people back, try and, poke out a charger if it's up there. Or, you get preemptive with it. You kind of get a little bit ahead of the objective line and just kind of like cover different areas. And that's what you want to follow is most maps, specifically Tower and Rainmaker for sure. They have their own objective line that you can follow. And that is the most important thing that you need to do, is stick to the objective line and keep pushing the objective, because that's where mostly everything is going to happen. Like if you're playing tower control on this map specifically and you see tower over here, and you're all the way over here doing I don't know what, trying to paint this uninkable wall, get back over to the objective. The amount of time people just go away from the objective and do nothing is insane to me. You're not really doing anything over here, because if the enemy team is following the objective line rule, they're going to be going over there. They're not going to be even over here. You're going to be doing nothing. You can't get up there. That's not your sponge. You can't do anything. So the enemy's going to be over there. Maybe if there's a charger on tent, you can poke it out. But more than likely, it's going to kill you, because you're not going to be doing anything over here unless you have the range or something to kill it. But it's going to probably kill you, or the enemy team's going to kill you. And then, they're going to have free access to getting over here to your team probably. All this area is going to be safe for them to drop because you're over here doing nothing. So you want to be with the objective and cover the objective. I'm not going to be ruling out, rare cases where, yeah, sure, you could be over here and do something. But for the most part, 99% of the time, you should be with the objective or in the vicinity of the objective to either stop the opponents from taking the objective or to help your teammates take the objective. Now let's look at something like Rainmaker that has, its own objective line, okay? So we have the two pedestals on the map right here, as you can see that I'm pointing at with my cursor. So with Rainmaker, you either go this way or this way. And I chose Undertow because specifically this map has a good line that you can follow and a bad line. This one over here is absolutely terrible. It is close to the respawn area of the enemy, so when they respawn, they're just going to wall you out. This is also uninkable. You cannot ink this, so they can just come out from spawn and just absolutely wreck your day. They got 100% total coverage of this pedestal, and they're just going to sit here and just destroy you. So coming over to this pedestal is a last resort. If you need points, this is the pedestal you come to. This is a last resort. However, this line over here is a lot better because now you have this area over here. You're farther back, you're away from grates, so you can throw bombs up at grates to kind of stop them, have some range, and your Rainmaker can chill back here, shoot shots up there, and when you finally get the opening, you can come up here and then dunk the Rainmaker. And that's the kind of line you want to follow. But then also, once you dunk, you have the final pedestal over here. So after you dunk, you have your objective line again. You still have two. If you dunk over here, bam, you go this way, or if you dunked here, you go this way. You can still also take the long way around from, if it resets, and then you just go this way, or if it resets, you just go the long way back like that. But when you're focused on the objective, you get here and now it's like, okay, well now I got to go here. And this again is still, like I said, the better objective line that you want to take, because now you can put pressure up there. You have a lot more free room to just kind of back up and shoot your shots, maximize your range. And then when you get picks, you go here. Or if you get this area covered up here, you come up here and boom. This is more map specific. I'm going over map specific details, but the general rule still applies where you follow the objective line to the pedestal. You go to the pedestal. That's what you want to do with Rainmaker. You follow it and you stick with the Rainmaker. And that's what I'm trying to highlight here is you want to be around your Rainmaker. Again, if you're not around your objective, then your objective is probably going to get pushed and killed. Let's say again, going back to something like a decision making, you decide I'm going to long flank. This is a bad idea because you are nowhere near the objective. Let's say they're all the way in that corner. You're nowhere near the objective. Your team is now in a 3v4 and you have to swim all the way around and come up this way. And if the enemy team checks the map, like let's say there's a charger up there, they turn around and snipe you. Or you mess up your flank. Or, the enemy team backs up and they see you and boom, they kill you. I did a scrim the other day where someone was coming around from the long flank, and this does not work in a competitive setting. They came around from the long flank. I saw a little bit of pitter of ink on my minimap. I go, hey, turn around. They're right behind you. And my charger turned around, flicked, and killed them. So that's how you know when you're working with a coordinated team, this is not going to work. This long flank is not going to work. That team is going to see that 3v4. You're going to get up here, boom, they're going to turn around and kill you and then kill your team. So that's where you want to stick with your objective. You want to be with your objective, cover your objective, because now if your Rainmaker's in this corner and you're sharking with the Rainmaker, they drop down, boom, slash kill them. They're dead. Or boom, you shoot and kill them. They're dead. Or your Rainmaker shooting. Rainmaker's a very powerful weapon. Rainmaker's me painting up here. Boom, your Rainmaker gets you some paint. Boom, you're in. Or your supporters get you in with some paint. Boom, now you're in. Now you can try and get there and fight. Throw down, a bubble, pop your specials, Kraken, whatever you need to get your Rainmaker in there to score on the pedestal. Now, Rainmaker and Tower, they have a very clear line of where you're supposed to be at, and it really helps where you're supposed to be standing and what you're supposed to be doing. Clam Blitz, however, is a little bit different, and in zones as well, I'm going to cover both. Clams is a little bit different because you have to paint. You got to kind of play turf war with Clam Blitz. You got to sit and move around. However, you know where the goal is. The goal is right there. You want to get your clams and you want to get in there and you want to score. But how are you going to do that? You got to build pressure. You got to build momentum. And most of the time, every clams map has two lines, again, like with Rainmaker. So you're in the center. I can either take this path up this ramp, which is the most common path. If you can, throw bombs up there, if someone's sitting up there, they're going to die. But if you can get up here and you can score. However, you can also take the longer way. You can come this way. This way could be a little bit more safer, as you can have someone up here in bats, taking care of everybody up here, providing you coverage, and you just take the long way around, and then boom, you score again. So those are your two lines that you can focus on with clams when, this is more map specific, but looking at all of your options that you can take with clams. What is the way to the basket? And you have two ways on Inkblot. You can come up this ramp, or you can go around with your team. There's other maps like Barnacle and Dime where you're most likely just going to be going inside the pit, or you can jump to your teammate if they get up to the top, left hand side or right hand side or wherever, and then boom, they can jump there. Or, if your team gets on top of their snipe, something like that, you have visualize the map. But most clan maps, you kind of have your lines of where you should be going with the objective. Go up this way, score, or go this way, and you can score this way. So that's where clams, it's more free flowy. There's no real objective besides grabbing clams and just, getting your clams to go get the objective. But once your clam holder gets a clam, then you should kind of treat it like a rainmaker where you gather around them, or you just try and help them get in there so they can push and get the score. Now for zones. Zones, it's in the center. This is your line is just straight to the center, and that's kind of all you really need. You just get to the center, but once you capture zone, the zone does not move. Once you get zone, that's when you just rush in and you just try your best to keep everybody at bay. You sit there and you try and take their plat. You try and take space and the territory that you need to get up and make sure that they can't get zone back. And that's what makes, zone a little bit easier to follow as well, where it's just like, where the objective is. It's right here. Clams can be a little bit weird, but zone it's right here. Get the zone, paint and focus on the zone. And once you have the zone, that's when you move forward. That's when you sit there and you push, or you defend the zone. Like, let's say you just get the zone and they come back and you need to defend it. Well, that's when you defend the zone. Or like I said, the zone does not move. If you get the zone, push your advantage, push in, get up here, and just keep the objective going. Basically, once you have the zone, imagine it's just a giant, tower that you have to defend that just sits in the middle, and you just sit here. How can you defend Rainmaker and stop them from getting to your objective? And that is what you want to be doing, and that's where, thinking and decision making comes in. What can I do to keep them at bay from getting on the zone? And that's how you should kind of prioritize zone is, okay, I got zone, moving in, moving forward, keeping them at bay, covering all choke points, spread, fan out as a team, but stay close enough together that you can help each other. You can have one person over here pressuring with bombs and paint. One, like two or three people like over here, and someone like getting up on their plat, or two people getting up on their plat, things like that, trying taking their snipe as well. All of those different scenarios that you can do to make sure that they can't get in on zone. And that's kind of how you do it with zone. You focus on that line to zone, and then boom, you get zone. Now where? This is all your area. Get this area covered on their side. And similarly, this applies to double zones as well. Double zones are a little bit different, as you can stall the zone if you paint one side. So if that's the case, just hold your one side of the zone and keep fighting until you can capture the other side of the zone. And that's when, okay, you got both zones. Now you push forward. Specifically on Manta and Umami's, those are the two most common double zones that are played. You just get both zones and then boom, you push forward and keep them in their base. So to recap, make sure you focus on the line of where the objective is. Focus on the objective and play your role accordingly to the objective. If you're a slayer, boom, just keep helping that objective move forward. If you're a supporter, boom, make sure the objective is covered and, help push the objective forward that way by staying close to the objective, or go up and help with your slayers as well. If you're up there in their face and you just have one person carrying the Rainmaker, the Clam or whatever, and three of you are providing space for that person to just get in, then you should win pretty handily by dunking Rainmaker, scoring clams, or just letting tower get pushed freely. One caveat about tower is the more people on tower, the faster the checkpoint gets taken. So if you're a supportive player and your slayers are keeping them really at bay, you can just hop on tower real quick, help the checkpoint get taken, and then, keep going as you would normally. So always follow the objective and make sure you have the objective covered, and then keep playing your role. Keep getting up there, slaying, making sure you're making the correct calls and decisions, working with your team, all that good stuff, awareness and decision making, making sure everything is painted, and keeping up the pressure when you have objective. But that's going to be all from me here. I hope this, help with objectives, and this kind of like help clarify different things about objectives and stuff like that. If you made it this far, I'd appreciate if you subscribe. It'd be great. I'd really appreciate it. And I hope this helped, and I will see you in the next one.